Now just for a moment, before you change the channel, imagine a public toilets building in the form of a big and celebratory monument. Okay, we know that this might hurt the feelings of many people who love statues, monuments, and the classy style of the city, but don't you think that it's fair to place personification of important social values in the center of our societies and cities? You are watching Stripping Architecture, and let's offer an alternative perception of the city with entertaining and out-of-the-box sketches. Stay tuned. Toilets as monuments. Exactly. As you can see on the screen, we have imagined a monument in the form of a multi-story public toilets. We're not trying to be provocative, but if you follow through, you'll see that there is a genuine reason behind our illustration. Generally speaking, monuments are perceived as embodiment of different important abstract entities that serve to feed and maintain the existence of any given group of people. However, an alternative perception can also be a pure reflection of the male-dominated society expressed in a culture of erection, but this debate we will leave it for another episode. As you can see on the sketch, monuments are usually located in a focal point, they're tall, and with some kind of sculpture at the top. The importance and the meaning of the monument can be amplified by the physical relation between the monument and the rest of the environment. For example, the fact that we have drawn surrounding made out of solid buildings, our imagined toilet/pillar appears much more imposing than if we had sketched sitting benches or trees around it. Additionally, from the illustration, we can easily acknowledge that the urban context we have envisioned resonates with the typical, European little squares that are normally surrounded by restaurants, cafes, and other shops. So it is obvious that the imagined controversial structure that we have drawn is in the center of the attention. Wait, but why it is controversial? Didn't we say in the beginning that monuments are embodiment of important values expressed in a physical object? Well, if you think about it, don't you think that hygiene is actually one of the major pillars of our society? Don't you think that ease and convenience performance of physiological needs is a human right? Well, if you share this noble opinion with us, don't you ever wonder why public toilets are always hidden in the most dirty corners of our cities? If they exist and if you can find them, first of all, of course. Why? Are we ashamed of something? Don't we have to celebrate hygiene as a major factor of stability and prosperity of the urban life? Well, while you're thinking about this subject, let's jump to the next sketch. From hero to zero. Speaking of erected monuments installed in the focal point of the urban context, we would like to refer to the following type of memorials. A tall pillar where the top is decorated with the statue of a national hero or some sculpture that resembles a personification of the national glory. In all honesty, we couldn't resist not to sketch an alternative perception of this kind of monuments, so here it is! Ta-da! We understand that the purpose of these tall pillars is to offer clear visibility from different places. However, as you can see on the sketch, these kind of pillars are relatively high when put into perspective with the surrounding dense urban context. In that sense, we often fail to notice the sculpture at the top, but hey, isn't that the major driver of the existence of this monument? I mean, yeah, you can always walk to the bottom of the monument and check the description of the monument, but since you see it from a distance, you don't really feel like intentionally walking to the bottom of some random monument only to check some disputable historical facts. I mean, this is at least how we feel about it, but it doesn't have to be true. Consequently, we realize that it's very easy to lose the visual of the sculpture that is located at the top of the pillar, and what you see is just a long-standing column. In that respect, in our sketch, we have detached the sculpture from the pillar. Yes, it somehow feels that the person that is being celebrated disappears from the focus. In fact, the statue of the hero exists only because you have preconceived knowledge about the meaning of the monument. But in all honesty, the celebrated person metaphorically dies. From this perspective, the national hero actually dies high above everyone in the middle of the public space and audience. The thought of someone dying in the middle of square inevitably associates us with the long time forgotten public executions. Execution high above everyone immediately suggests in our head the act of hanging the criminals in the past. Therefore, we were forced to sketch a tall hanging frame right next to the pillar and see where this sketch will go. Now, in the sketch, we have the pillar with detached sculpture of the hero elevating right at the top, and right next to that we have sketched a giant hanging gallows. In this moment, even though it is against our will, we can't do anything else than just to hang the hero on the sketch, of course. Oh my god, have we just hanged the hero? Poor hero. We didn't expect to end like this. This is probably the moment when the hero went down to a miserable zero. Okay, maybe very poetic, but let's move on the next sketch. The glory of the sewage. One of the most recognizable structures that we have perceived as a monument are the pyramids. We acknowledge them as a mysterious masterpieces that we're still not 100% sure of how they were built. We celebrate them as one of the most tremendous achievements of the humanity, but in fact, if we are completely honest and we put on side the spiritual and cultural meaning of the pyramids, they really have a limited use. To further express this thought, we have purposely sketched a giant pyramid surrounded by a vibrant urban microstructure. The illustration is inspired by the pyramids of Giza, and we must mention that though the city of Giza comes close to the pyramids, there is no pyramid that is completely surrounded by the urban tissue of the city. But for the purposes of our idea, we illustrated a pyramid that is completely surrounded by the buildings of the city. And we do that to emphasize the scale of the pyramid. The size of the pyramid can literally be compared with the size of one little town. Well, don't you find it mind-blowing that one single structure that used to serve to one limited group of people can equal to a size of a little town? More so, every little building that we have sketched from this imagined town can probably operate as a multifunctional unit. But the pyramid has predominantly only one function. In spite of this strange realization, we are celebrating the pyramids as high achievements only because they are somewhat mysterious, but they're practically useless. However, if you look at our sketch, you can maybe also notice that our illustration resembles some kind of three-dimensional section. Under the little buildings of the soil, you can spot some diverse sporadical structure. It may also look like roots, pipes, tunnels, but in fact we have symbolically illustrated the underground sewage system of the city we have imagined. Yes, indeed, one city needs complex but organized network of sewage system that can actually guarantee the basic needs of the society and the urban living. Designing the infrastructure of one city is a super demanding job, and it's from an existential need. However, in the history of humanity, we never see how people are celebrating the design of the sewage system or infrastructure. I mean, ask yourself, do you know something about the origins of the sewage system? Did you know that actually the elite of ancient Egypt used to have certain forms of sophisticated sewage systems, while the majority of the people had primitive solutions for disposal of waste and water supply? Maybe because they were just busy building pyramids, who knows? Additionally, do you think that the pharaohs would have been as much as important and popular as they are today if they were providing some sort of progressed sewage system for the people instead of building pyramids? I mean, honestly, do you think that we as society today would have been astonished by an ancient, sophisticated sewage system as we were impressed by a pile of stones in the shape of a pyramid? And slowly we are approaching to Monument of Burden. While we are talking about monuments as piles of stones, we have also prepared the following illustration, a monument that somehow feels heavy and oppressing. Precisely speaking, in the focus of this concept drawing, we have sketched a monument that is popularly known as triumphal arch, arcade or gate. Mostly, these kind of monuments have the purpose to express the glory of some nation. The idea is to symbolize victory and to offer metaphorical passageway from one suspenseful point of the history towards conquest. However, if you look back in the history and you make relation to these kind of arches, you will notice that very often these commemorative structures are echoing some controversial battle that ended with plenty of dead people regardless on which side they fought. They're often reflecting battles, slavery, colonialism, misunderstandings, slaughtering, killings, many different entities that are heavy and they feel like burden to the humanity. And why we are trying to celebrate them? To reflect this alternative perception of ours, we have sketched these hard feelings in the form of heavy stones that are piled up on top of each other and blocking the way towards the future. As you can see, we have purposely sketched these massive megaliths of stones piled up on top of each other without any order nor organization. They are a direct metaphor of mixed matters that are closely related but counterposing: war and glory. But now, if you look again in our imagined triumphal gate that is surrounded by all these heavy rocks, you probably start feeling our alternative perception. You can now perceive the arch as a man-made structure in a fancy style that is trying to break through the difficult past, trying to mask the trauma with dignifying and monumental appearance such as the arch. Well, that was all for today. Hopefully you managed to extract some knowledge out of our alternative thinking. And before we say goodbye, we just want to show you that these sketches that we have presented today in our video are part of many other sketches that we have done in the past. As a matter of fact, these sketchbooks over here that you see are just a tiny fraction from our large collection. And now finally we're thinking about publishing them in some kind of a book. Well, we are very actually interested to know your opinion about how would you describe these type of sketches with 1 or 2 words. And if you want to see more of these sketches, go on our Instagram profile and there you will find plenty of these type of sketches where we're trying to express and critique the architecture and the urbanism of our cities in an alternative way with fun illustrations. And we really want to know how would you categorize these type of illustrations. Thank you very much for staying with us, stay well and see you in the next episode of Stripping Architecture. Don't forget to follow us and subscribe. Bye bye.